Good evening, Goffstown, and welcome to the June 8th, 2026 Goffstown Select Board regular meeting. If you join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think we all forgot the words there for a minute.
I had a senior moment, I don't know about you guys.
No one wanted to be the first one to start.
Okay, everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from the May 18th meeting. If so, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 5/18/2026 public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second, okay. Motion by Mark, second by Richard. Any comments? Not, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any announcement? Anybody have an announcement?
You do have one in your packet.
I do, I know, just asking anyone else first. One announcement, traffic notice, Henry Bridge Road Project, effective June 23rd, 2026. Bridge work over the Piscataqua River will require full closure of the bridge and pedestrian walkway for several weeks to replace the bridge decking and address corrosion and structural steel below. Beginning June 23rd, after school is out, closure will last 24/7 until the project is complete. A detour route will be established via Elm Street and Main Street and Mast Road. For more information about the project, please visit the construction projects webpage under Public Works on the town website for additional information and updates. Could we go right into public comments? Okay, I'm open for public comments. Anyone here for public comment? Okay. Hearing and seeing no one, I'll close public comments. And next item is the appointment of Goffstown Junior Baseball.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Vanessa Hayes, 23 Lisa Drive in Goffstown.
Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of Goffstown Junior Baseball tonight. So very exciting for us in 2026 is that we are hosting the District 1 Little League Championship at our fields this year, which is awesome. Gets us a bunch of people who don't normally come into our fields to visit, hang out downtown in between games, and see what Goffstown's all about. So with that, obviously, comes some additional parking needs. As you know, we've got the gravel lot. That's our primary parking area under the power lines, which is great. Holds about 90 spots allegedly on a good day if everybody's tightened up. And then we have the town old dirt lot that the rail trail used to use next to it as well. We have some overflow parking on Normand Road, but what we're nervous about is that it just might not be enough on those days where we have 2 games at once. Games starting, coming in, right? It's almost like 4 sets of teams that are going to need parking. So we're hoping that we can work together to have a temporary permission for some vehicles to park in the grassy area. And I think you have a picture? Yes.
Yep.
In that grassy area on the other side of the rail trail fence, in between the physical therapy building and that grassy kind of pine tree area, only for certain days in July. Now, actually on Friday, Derek, I had given you a 2-week spread initially, but our games are actually going to begin on Friday, July 17th. So it's shaving a few days off the front. And then Sunday, the 26th, would be our if needed game. So who knows what will happen there. So it's really only 9-10 days potentially that we would have some additional needs. So we would be looking to have only people kind of come in and out almost near the physical therapy building. We don't want anybody where the crosswalk is. We would have all the cars enter and exit there, kind of stake off with some temporary the stakes and then some caution tape to keep them only coming and entering out that way. And again, just those 9 or 10 days. But want to give a shout out to Chief Serino and Chief Selleck, who worked hard to kind of get this plan together. Derek Horn helping us out. It's exciting. We haven't hosted districts since 2019. And it was popping then, and we expect for it to be even bigger now, especially with those new bathrooms we just installed over there, if you saw them on the side of the road. Yeah. Any questions, though?
Anyone have any questions? So is the Is Chief Sereno okay with this? Yes, sir. Okay, that's a thumbs up. Okay, we need a motion?
Yeah, so we'd be just asking for a motion to authorize department heads to work with GJB on the final plan.
Do you think you may need more than that, Vanessa?
So, TBD. It's tough because we don't have access to the parking lot on the side of the villa anymore. Now that RDF Corp owns that and blocks it. I know that we had been in temporary potential parking request situation with Eversource to use kind of where the old power station was across the way, which we have used in the past, and they're great. I think with planning, this should be good. And the board is creative, so sometimes when the board knows it's going to be a super busy night, like picture night or something, or we got big games going on, we'll just encourage carpools. We'll encourage parents to drop off and leave, not leave, but, to help us out a little bit. So I don't know,
What about Parks and Rec?
maybe.
Maybe.
I've fantasized about a GJB shuttle bus at some point to get us back and forth from some of these other lots that can handle us. We use the GHS parking lot sometimes. It's just tough when you got bat bags and strollers and little legs walking back and forth, especially at night.
Okay, cool.
I know you say it's off limits, but have we asked the people that own the parking lot across the street?
I'm so glad you asked. Oh, across the street, the Eversource one or the Normand Road?
Norman Road.
They have requested that we not ask again. That's a whole nother side story, Mark, but yeah, they're not interested in either letting us lease it or rent it or, yeah, it stinks because we see it getting overgrown and it's perfect for the T-ball and farm kids, but I get it. It's their property.
Yep.
Yeah.
Make a motion to authorize department heads to assist Goffstown Junior Baseball with the implementation of the parking plan as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion by Richard, second by Josh. Any more comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
So appreciate it, guys. Thank you again.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Good luck with it.
Next up is the appointment of Evelyn Trimble, 144 Moose Club Park Road. Just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Evelyn Trimble, 144 Moose Club Park Road in Goffstown.
Okay.
So I think where we left off with this is the board had some questions, and after doing a little bit more research, we really see that there are 4 options for the board. The first is that you could treat this like a petition to upgrade the Class 6 road and to lay out a new road on the private portion. If you were to do that, we have to notify all abutting property owners. It's a 30-day notification. What you would also have to do is you'd have to figure out what level of road standard you'd be building to. And then the property owners that benefit from that would be charged a betterment in the future. So I don't know what page it is, but I think Adam had an estimate of about $1.2 million for 8 houses. And betterments can be paid out over many years, but that's really for that. The next option would be to declare it an emergency lane. So when you're declaring it an emergency lane, that authorizes you to do limited road work so that it's passable for fire and emergency. The problem with that is you cannot charge a betterment or pass those costs back off to the people that benefit from it, and also any of the property owners that are adjacent to that, if they do not agree with it, there is a process where they can say no, and it kind of kills that whole application. A third one would be to do a liability waiver to allow the property owners to maintain the Class 6 portion, which again is that small beginning portion, and then the fourth option is to do nothing.
Anybody have anything? Did you want to say anything, ma'am?
Yes, so the first option, $1.2 million or whatever, is a little bit steep for 8 property owners, so I think we're going to say that probably is not going to work for us, unfortunately. Was wondering too if, the part that is the public part, could we look into how much that might cost?
Yeah, so that would be the property owners could say, yeah, we want a petition just for the Class 6 to
Okay.
convert that, and yes, we could, you could ask DPW for a breakdown. Adam, do you have a? ballpark?
That
People
would,
just left, but I can give you a ballpark. The parking enough for this
Pun
ballpark.
intended.
Adam Jacobs, DPW Director. I took a very quick look, as you probably remember, the full estimate for that, the whole stretch, which is about 2/3 private, 1/3 Class 6. A good chunk of that cost was the retaining wall that would be necessary along the private section to get any kind of maintainable width, but it's also right on the riverbank, so it's not just any retaining wall, it's a fully permitted wetland, impact, and tall. So I think it was like $450,000 for that, just that one piece of that whole section. So a good chunk of it is that. I took a look at just best guess without any kind of actual, survey and design in hand for this kind of thing. Probably talking about $150,000 to bring that first Class 6 section to town standards. And that includes survey, some right-of-way acquisition, some drainage, new gravels, paving, and some sort of ability to turn around. So that's about the ballpark for that little stretch.
we're just talking about this orange
The
part
orange,
here.
yep,
You said about 150 grand now,
yes.
and that's paved?
That would be paved, yep. There may be, even with some right-of-way acquisition, there are some, Ms. Trimble's house in particular is right up against it, so there would have to be a few, I didn't get a full list of what it would take, but if you were going to entertain that option, we'd bring to you kind of a bulletized list of waivers that you probably would have to make over the usual design standards, because it would be narrower than normal anyway.
And if we opted to do that, where would we pay for it from?
So you could redirect money from either the road plan or somewhere else within this year's operating budget. You could wait, I guess, until next year and budget for it separately. And then what you would do is you'd create a betterment where the benefiting property owners would pay back over a certain period of time.
Which section had the largest potholes in it?
The beginning section, so at the bottom where it goes up the hill a little ways and then past my house.
Is that in the private or the Class 6?
It's the Class 6 portion.
How many, am I correct, it's about 4/5 houses that would be impacted, that would basically split up that 150,000?
So there's actually 8 houses on both sections, on the Class 6 and the private way. There's a total of 8 houses.
8 between
I think
two or eight
actual,
each?
8 total.
Okay.
Yeah.
actual residences on the Class 6 portion, I think is two.
Just 2.
Two
yeah.
houses.
Would they be splitting $150,000?
I would want to get clarification, but I believe anyone benefiting from the improvement, you could make them, subject.
So you could make it possibly pushed off to
Possibly.
all of the houses because the beginning of their road is now,
Yeah,
better
usually
than us.
usually when you do a betterment project, we decide on how that's going to be broken up, whether it's over road frontage. We have done betterments. We have the water line betterment. That was a pretty complicated equation that dealt with possible number of units on each property and frontage. The assessor talking with him on this was because it's just 8 dwelling units, just to break it up evenly.
So possibly we could get some more like factual estimates from you, if that's possible, and then talk to the homeowner before we decide on that, and then possibly also looking at this this other piece, the emergency lane. I don't know what improvements you would make to the road if we did pursue looking at making it an emergency lane.
Yeah, so I think we would want some direction from the board and exactly, how level of in-depth, do you want DPW to go out and come up with an exact estimate for what those road improvements are, those kind of things.
So all the signatures you have here, is that for everybody on the road?
Yes.
Was everybody prepared to pay something?
We weren't sure what our options were, so we would need to discuss that further amongst ourselves.
And I think that's why there is a formal notification process in the RSA.
Because, I mean, the simplest way to make sure that you guys are all willing to pay for it is that basically we give you permission to do that with a liability waiver. And then you guys can work it out amongst yourselves to be able to do that versus us having to go through a whole bunch of like
True.
public back and
Yeah.
forth.
True,
And then there's still some execution in that path.
yes, and we'd probably have to clear it with you as well.
What I think normally with the liability waiver trade that goes on is the board asks DPW to make recommendations about certain things, if there's stream crossings or whatever. In this case, the big question would be how much of the normal standards would the board want to waive, and then, you know, how much you wouldn't. If I could, just while I have the mic, on the emergency lane designation, although it sounds nice, the problem I would have, I think, is that to designate something as emergency lane, but then say, but we can't maintain it in the winter because it's too narrow, there's no turnaround, et cetera. Seems a little disingenuous anyway, but it's a means to an end if the board wants to go that way, but it would be a partial year emergency lane, you know.
And then we would maintain it for the winter.
Exactly,
Like we
so.
maintain it now. But at least if we had the road like nicely smooth, possibly paved, we could do it. You know, it'd be much easier for us to maintain it.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking. So, I mean, I would make the motion to allow the residents to perform maintenance and/or paving on the Class 6 portion at your expense in exchange for recorded waiver of municipality liability, and also would recommend that we deny the request to upgrade the status of Moose Club Road.
How about the emergency lane portion though? How about, could we consider that?
My motion stands for the entire thing.
Oh,
Get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Josh, second by Allison. Any further comments?
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yeah, okay.
that's a resident.
Do you want to come up and give your name and address, please?
So I'm Mary Ann Christie, I live at 149 Moose Club Park Road. So my property, Beth Evelyn's. So to me, it seems like the public road ends at her house and the private road begins at my house. And it sounds like most of the work will be done, if agreed upon, with probably assistance from the residents, on the public road. The private road section from my house and beyond would remain as it is that?
Right.
No, my motion is that you guys basically are allowed to do what you need to within the standards on the Class 6 road. And if you guys so choose to also update the private road amongst yourselves, then that's something that you can do as
Right,
well.
at our cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, all right. Okay, the motion on the table, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just for clarification for me.
Yes.
Would you like me to bring to a future meeting sort of the standards that
And your recommendation?
would be waived or not waived?
Yes,
kind of thing?
please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Al. Okay, let's go to the library. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll sit down without falling over. Hello, everybody. My name is Jordan Willow Evans. I am the Vice Chair of the Goffstown Public Library. I'm joined by Patty Pennick, our Director. In your packets in front of you, you should have, I believe, a little update on what we've been going through at the library. Now, I know Richard's aware of it, and I'm certain Derek is also aware of what we've been going through, but for the other board members and for the audience at home, our elevator is currently out of commission. There was a part failure. I believe it's a hydraulic pump that you need for it to operate as part of a larger piece. And the Board of Trustees was presented with the dilemma of, do we want to rebuild this part? Do we want to replace this part, or do we want to replace the entire unit? This all happened about 2 weeks ago, I'd say, like maybe 3?
11 days.
11 days exactly. So we had to meet quickly and we had to take action on it because this is something that puts us out of compliance with the Americans with Disability Act. So this is something that we have to rectify as soon as we can. Of the three options, the board deliberated and voted on the decision to replace the entire unit, and that was because the unit, if we replace it, we can actually subtract that from when we eventually want to get a new elevator entirely. So that's something that was kind of an incentive. Also, the part itself, the whole unit rather, is what, 30 years old now? Something around that?
There's coming up on 30 years.
Yeah, so the dilemma we were forced to face with was one where you typically see with like a used car or an older car where one part starts to go and then the entire thing falls shortly after. So instead of running that risk, the board decided to move forward with replacing the entire unit, which came to about $37,000 and change. And we've been grappling with how we want to afford this, and that's why I'm in front of you today. We want to solicit some feedback from the select board, kind of go over what we went through, and then see if there's any guidance you can offer or sources you can point us in the direction of. As it stands right now, with that $37,000, we're not going to be able to eat that out of our budget. Like, that's just too big, and we know that this is a problem that everyone in town is having, every department. However, we are also privileged in that we have a CRF, and that was something that we put a lot of thought into. The CRF, it's a $50,000 CRF that we have available to us. We did originally have it established to help us with emergencies at the building, as well as to give us some leeway with granting opportunities. I think I may have been the one who kind of talked about that with the board the last time I was in front of you about that. So that's something we're keeping in mind about it. We want, obviously, we're fortunate that we have a solution no matter what, but we are really remiss about depleting the entire CRF immediately, because we have other projects that we are being mindful of. If we do have the entire component replaced out of the CRF, and that's that entire $37,000, that puts us in a dangerous situation where we may not have enough money in case we have an HVAC failure in the future, and that's something that the library has been very mindful of potentially happening. So why I'm here today is because I would like to know, and the library would like to know, are there any grant opportunities? Are there any other funding opportunities we may have not considered because this is a municipal building? Just anything like that to kind of help us make our choice moving forward. If we have to use the CRF, we have to use the CRF. That's why it exists. However, we also want to use it as effectively as possible. And if there are other avenues we should be pursuing, we would really like to know.
What's the situation with Primex? Do you really, any realistic chance you're going to get some money from them?
I don't think so, although Danielle and I did talk briefly about it. I think she was going to explore that, but where the unit, and correct me if I'm wrong, where the unit is at the end of its expected life cycle, I wouldn't anticipate there to be anything coming from that.
Anything at all?
Okay. Are we missing the attached?
Yeah, you are missing the attached, so I apologize for that. But it was the quote from the repair company.
I happen to have a copy. Do you want to start?
Yeah, we can pass it around.
And what about repairing itself versus replacing it?
So here are the three options in a nutshell. The part that actually broke is a valve that's contained within the hydraulic power module. So the valve,
Is
one copy.
I'll print out additional copies.
Yeah. So the valve is the broken, a component within the valve is broken. So we can either get a brand new valve, we can have a rebuilt valve, or we can replace the entire hydraulic power module, which includes the valve as well as a pump and a motor. And this is the system that operates the elevator to go up and down. So, as Jordan already mentioned, the board had already prioritized updating the entire elevator over time because of the age of the unit, anticipating that we would start having difficulties. The plus side to going ahead, even though it is the more costly of the three options to replace the entire module, is that it kind of gives us a jump start on the rest of it. So just to give you a broad picture idea, it was quoted in 2025 that the entire elevator mechanical and control upgrade would be around $282,000. So this $37,000, and it's been crystal clear that this will take care of this. We won't lose that $37,000 as we continue to upgrade. So we can deduct that amount from the amount that we need to continue. So we're sort of chipping away at it. And then also, as Jordan mentioned, you know, one thing starts to go and then another thing goes. So we're trying to be proactive and move forward. But it has been tough.
Is there a, like, warranty on that hydraulic?
Yeah, I did ask that. It's surprisingly, no matter what route we go,
Yeah.
in my opinion, it's surprisingly short. It's, I think, a year for parts.
So you spend 37 grand and you only get a year's worth of, like, warranty on that? Is that the
If we
same
go
on
with
on the other replacements too?
So the rebuilt, I believe, was 90 days.
How much was that?
That was just under 8.
Yeah, it's like
it was
7.5,
under 8.
8.
And then the brand new valve was, I think, about 13.
15, I think.
13 to, yeah, something,
Something like
yeah. So we'd be getting 3 parts, that whole component that runs the elevator. You know, they could do just the valve and then the pump fails. Or so if we piecemeal the parts that are in that power unit, we'll probably end up paying more. I don't have prices for the other parts right now, to be honest. Like if you said, how much is the pump, how much is, I don't know the answer to that. But generally speaking, when you get the one thing, you save a little bit versus piecemealing it. The Goffstown High School, I understood from, it's Stanley Elevator that we work with, and they also have work with the high school. They just faced the same situation, and they went with the power module too.
A brand new replacement?
Their elevator, as I understand it, might just be a couple years older than ours, but pretty close in age.
I mean, I don't know any grants, Derek, unless you know, like through ADA or something like that, that would help.
We can definitely look for those. And when Patty made me aware of this problem, I said at a minimum, the public library should come and at least discuss it with you. The only thing I think of is we did identify some underspend in the benefits line in quarter 1. You know, as we approach that point where we're approaching the end of quarter 2, we may have a better idea and be able to more accurately forecast where we're going to end up at the end of the year for that. So we don't know if the board would want to consider a budget line transfer to take this out of the operating budget versus the capital reserve fund or a portion thereof, because it seemed a shame to have this brand new capital reserve fund for $50,000 created, followed up by basically draining it 6 months after it's been created.
Is, out of the part you were just talking about, how much is there, the underfund that you were just talking about?
So when we reported to you back in May, the townwide insurance that we use for all the employees was approximately $100,000 where I had expected to be. I would want, if the board would want us to look at that, I would want Danielle to take a much deeper dive into that, and especially since she's been working with some of the employees in other departments about possible plan changes during the year due to changes in their family circumstances. So I would want to make sure we're not going to underspend that. But if that's something that the board wanted to direct us to do, I wanted to at least give you in the public library that option.
I think instead of making a knee-jerk decision like that, we probably should rack and stack it against the things that we also were not able to get this year because we were not able to go through with our full budget.
Maybe we could split it up 17-20 or something like that from with the library's money. I hate to spend that money too, but
I mean, it exists for this purpose, but, you know, we're also hoping to use it as an incentive with granting.
Right, I
So
know-
we can
I
say we
know
can
that,
match certain
I know
things.
that.
So if the board like, we could work with Patty in the library, and at your next meeting, come with a couple of different options of where we might be able to bring either a portion over to kind of reduce that hit on the capital reserve fund, and you can kind of split it. Or worst case scenario, if you decide not to, they still do have the capital reserve fund. So we did, working with Patty, they have ordered the part just to try and minimize that impact on the residents using the library.
It's a 6 to 7 week process of waiting for the part and getting it.
Do you have to pay in full after it's installed, or?
We have to put 50% down.
So you know 50% needs to come up out of the way
Right
already?
away, yeah. And then the second half after it's done.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we do that then?
I'd like to do that.
Okay, I'll work with Danielle and Patty, and we'll bring a couple list of options at your next meeting.
Okay, good.
Do we think that we're still gonna have extra from the benefits line, Derek?
Again, as we got through Q1, it was about $100,000 less than where I thought it should be, but I didn't have the benefit of Danielle looking it over and also knowing, communicating with some of the employees where we might have some changes. Because we do expect that there are some people that are on single and two-person plans that are moving to that more expensive family plan this summer because of, new family members, so.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Patty, do you want this back? This is your copy. We will
I
have
just
copies.
printed copies.
Yeah,
and-
I know, I'm like getting hers just back.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that was my copy, yes.
This is yours that you passed to us.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Chief Selleck, you want to come up?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, Chief.
Which one did you want to start with, Derek?
You want to start with Terrell Hill Road
Yep.
first?
So, we have a little bit of history looking at different buildings in the town, especially fire stations, and I'm coming to you tonight to get some direction from the board as far as what I should be planning for next year's budget, CIP, that type of stuff. We have some significant problems with Station 2, so I'm starting to work on those and planning for that, because obviously that's an occupied station. Station 3 currently is storage, so Station 3, purpose-wise for the town right now, is holding the CERT equipment, which we're now moving to Station 1. It holds 2 antique fire apparatus. It holds some radio tower equipment, and then powers the radio station, the antenna and everything like that. So what I'm trying to go through, it looked like about 15 reports that the town has studied this multiple different times, and we know that, one, the water is not drinkable, the septic needs to be replaced, and structurally, the building cannot be refurbished. It has to be torn down completely and rebuilt. So I'm just trying to find out from the board some direction on where do we want to go.
It serves a purpose now, right?
Basically storage and then powering of the, that area's radio repeater.
Is it minimal cost to maintain?
Costs we have. Jim, almost like I knew you were gonna ask. So luckily, Brenda has been around the department and absolutely phenomenal to have that resource. So she was very quickly able to pull up appropriate spending in reference to Station 3. So you have the 5-year history of spending there. And obviously 2026 is not a full year, but you can see there. The outliers that you're going to see in there is the 5th column over. You have a study that was completed specifically for that station for $12,637.50. So that's a little different. And you'll see your maintenance costs. Then you're going to see alarm monitoring. That's when we disconnected that station from Circuit 3 because we had a very long leg going out from Grassmere Town Hall all the way out to that. That line became damaged, and we decided not to replace it because that was going to be a significant cost. So we switched over to monitoring for that. That now monitors security, but also temperature. So we make sure that it maintains at least somewhat of a decent temperature to maintain the equipment that's in there. So you have that. So roughly over, since 2021 to date, about $50,000 we've spent on Station 3 so far. But if you want to subtract the study, because that was obviously a one-time fee for that. And with the monitoring, you can see what we're costing per year now, because obviously the first one there was not a full year, and 2026 is not a full year. 2025 is.
Chief, can it stay as it is now?
Sure. So I think options, Allison, is we can continue with the, look through the history. The board members might be able to help me out. Looks like we did the study recently that the town wanted to study. They put through the study, came out to see what it was going to be operationally, but obviously it was a very high cost that we didn't think was going to fly. So sounds like that kind of got put on the back burner. That's obviously still an option. We have all of the report done for that. We know how much it's going to cost. For the fire department, I don't think that's a priority for us right now. As well as speaking emergency management, with my emergency hat on, we're talking about a police station, which absolutely needs to be the priority for that. So that would be one option. Another option is to just demo it and just move the generator over to the radio tower. And then the third option is just to let it run until the wheels fall off. I'm just trying to figure out what I should be including in my next year's budget and subsequent years. Should I be planning on trying to keep it energy efficient? Should I, wait, I think we turned the water off there in 2006, according to the records, it looked like. So obviously, if we turn the water back on, we're gonna need plumbing and all that type of stuff. But, so there's a lot of work to be done if we wanna make it operational. But if we wanna run it until the wheels fall off, that's fine. So if we just come to our, very much like we did with the fire alarm system, when it breaks, and we just don't replace it, and we'll have to find a home for the 2 antique fire apparatus and some storage for the radio equipment. But
Do those antique fire apparatus belong to us?
technically, they belong to Firemen's Association.
Correct.
And it's an agreement with the town, so they're, I believe they're registered and insured by the town for for drivable one, and the trailer for the hand tub, which comes out during the.
I know the roof was done a couple of years ago.
Yep.
We just replaced the roof at the,
Yeah, with the association, we got together and we replaced the roof. The roof is in good shape. As far as inside, if it's gonna be cold storage, I just assume leave it the way it is and that's it. We don't have to spend a penny on it.
so it's been, what, 3 years, 5 years, Mark?
3 years.
The building's not insured?
Building's insured.
It is insured. It's not a cost on you, that's why.
Yeah, that's because it comes out of the town line.
Okay.
It doesn't come out of mine.
Do we know how much that is, Derek, at all, or no?
Probably pretty minimal.
Okay.
Chief, where are they gonna put the cert stuff? Is it gonna?
Mezzanine,
Sorry?
the mezzanine. I've been doing some spring cleaning.
So if, let's just say that it wasn't a place that we did storage, could any of those existing vehicles that are there be moved someplace else to be stored?
We would have to look into options. We definitely don't have the room in Station 1 and Station 2 for them. We would have to work with other organizations to try to find storage for them.
Yeah, like, I don't know, Historic Society, somebody.
Yeah, I don't know what their capabilities are.
Do we know how much it would cost to tear the building down?
I don't. Can look into that if that's what the board would like to do.
Is there anything reusable in the building if we were to do that?
No.
Not even the generator, nothing?
Well, the generator would have to be moved to the radio antenna, so we wouldn't be able to use it for any other purpose. We just have to move it to the antenna and keep it going.
If we tore down the building, would we have to rip up the septic?
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, you have to ask the building inspector on that.
And that's something the town has a little bit of a history with, is not doing that stuff. I would recommend to do that. That's what we ran into last year with the paving project over at Station 2, is, Mark may be able to help me out, is when we switched over from oil to natural gas, like 2011, looked at?
Right. Somewhere's around there.
Somewhere's around there. Anyway, they didn't have enough money to take out the oil tank out of the ground. So that was a big surprise to us last year, that the oil tank had not been removed and that it was full.
The septic was also, again, just rebuilt not too long. It's been a few years, probably 10 years, but out of that 10-year period, It hasn't been used probably a handful of times, Josh. It's just,
So it was
There's no
replaced not
water,
so long ago
so-
as well, the septic?
yep, all of the internal pieces and parts to make that, a workable building have all been replaced.
Is the building being used for any other means besides just the storage?
I believe just if DPW needs a break, PD needs a break, something like that. And Chief Serino and I have talked about that a little bit here with the closure of the Henry Bridge. They'll probably be using as a break over those next 6 weeks or so that or hopefully less that it takes to get Henry Bridge back open.
So it's not being cleaned, it's not really being maintained. Do we have any liability if somebody gets hurt in the building since we're not doing any maintenance on it?
Just like any other building if somebody got hurt.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, is there enough land there to build a functional station if?
Yeah,
we do
I
something?
believe you actually have
That's what
4
this whole
different
thing
plans on that the town has already got.
Josh,
yeah.
I wanted to answer for you, within that packet, because I actually flipped through it. I didn't
Great.
read it word for word, but it said back then that the demolition of the existing building would be about 50,000. I remember seeing that, so I
And I
wanted to
just-
come back.
I
And
don't know
again, that
what
was a
it would be
couple of years
currently.
ago.
Yes, yes,
Things would
correct.
probably change, but that was a general,
And I think that was the demo of that. It doesn't include the changeover, right? If I remember correctly?
demolition, it's just within the
Because
cost to
that was
replace.
That's good questions.
Assumes minimal site or utility improvements.
Right, so
Yeah.
Allison, I believe that was, and Chief Sereno can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that was before the tower went up. So I
Okay.
don't
It
think.
was.
Okay.
Okay.
So that
So, yes,
wouldn't,
23.
that wouldn't have even been in the scope back then.
Yeah.
But obviously that tower is extremely important to emergency services.
Yeah.
And we definitely want to maintain that.
And that's all part of the land, the contiguous?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we remove the station study, and it looks like we got 6 years, it was roughly around $6,100 per year on average that we're paying.
Yeah, I think 2025 is going to be the one to use there, so,
$6,000.
Yeah, about
yeah.
6 grand.
so- Looks about right, Josh. Yep.
So, and from the previous chief in the seat, he stated in another meeting that we don't need the station currently to service any of the homes back in that area because basically response times are the same no matter what.
So you have the response time maps that the town has studied before, so I provide those to you. Obviously, that area of town is very difficult to get to. It's typical Yankee, you can't get there from here. So if that's staffed or unstaffed, that's obviously a very big difference in time response. But as far as our response coming out of Station 1 and Station 2, that covers that area. It's split up, that area right now. Obviously, if that station was staffed, that would be a whole different thing, but it's not staffed, it's not equipped. It's not really helping us out with our response times. So our town average response time obviously goes down because of that area, but it's also a sparse area. And as you look at town development, you see a lot of the developments going in, like the Spice Rack, the Acorn Drive extension, and a lot more large lots ready for development in that sector. So the town's going to need it in the future, but that'll probably be after me, I hope.
I assume you don't have $50,000 to $75,000 hanging around to demolish the building.
I probably could have a bunch of really eager firemen with some sledgehammers, but you probably will not get the result that you're looking for. Sorry, Jim.
But I think you're not looking for just this year, you're looking for out years too.
I just need to know what the vision is so that I can give you guys some direction. So when I'm planning on this, if we're gonna keep the water off, that's really easy. I'm not gonna look at replacing plumbing or anything like that. But one of my current concerns is security and going to the system that we have at the other stations, just so we can monitor who's in, who's out, that type of stuff. Because all it is just a button with a battery. So anyone who knows the number can get in there right now. So I'd like to change that out. That'd be one thing I definitely would like to do if we're going to move forward with this. But
So it could be additive cost, is what you're saying?
that would just be a one-time, and we're working with IT
And
on
monthly,
that.
right?
Brian, would we have any increase on that? I don't
No.
think so. We're already monitoring.
Once the doors are installed, they're installed.
Mark?
I'm gonna make a motion, leave it just the way it is, And later on, when we have money back in the budget, we can do something with it.
I
I
second
mean,
that.
I see problems right now, where are we gonna put this, where are we gonna put that? And it just, I think it would create more of an issue than it would, saving it. So gonna make the motion, leave it just the way it is.
Motion by Mark, second by Allison. Any other Josh?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Mark, but I think also looking out further years, like ahead. So I think the town gets some benefit out of the station being there now because of the insurance premiums. I think, at least in that area, they assume that it's a fire station. I think in a few years, we're not necessarily going to have that anymore because somebody's going to come and
That's a
audit
good
that.
point, too.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, I think that should we ever need to put a fire station there in the future, we'll have to demolish it no matter what.
And we've already got the land.
And we already got the land. So I really would like to see like how much that would cost versus how much additive that we're gonna need to maintain it personally, but I'm good with the motion for this year, for sure, to leave it alone, but I do think that we should get some feedback on some of those other pieces, so that way we can make more forward-leaning decisions for out years, because if we do wanna go and demolish it, let's say next year, Chief Ben's gonna actually have to go ahead and get that money put together as a calculation for the budget committee and ourselves and everybody else.
Okay.
And you're gonna take care of the security issue.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm hoping to do that this year. It's just,
Okay.
we know what this budget looks like this year, so it's tight.
Okay, any further comments? No? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, so a little, next topic, I believe you have in front of you, a little bit.
You got a last minute memo that was left.
Oh, okay.
So this one is hopefully a little bit easier for you guys to swallow. So, long story short, we were successful, surprisingly, in obtaining, I guess, the first step of receiving a grant, I'll say. So for it's one of DES's energy efficiency grants. The other one we were turned down as expected. So what you have in front of you is a request for a certificate of authorization. This is the state's new step for grants. The grant, if awarded, they basically need to make sure that whoever's applying for and doing that has the authorization to do that. So tonight before you, we are now a selectee, which means we made it through the process. So if the board grants us permission to do the certificate of authorization, that will allow myself and Derek to work on the agreement with the state, and then we would bring this agreement back to you for final approval, and hopefully that will mean that we'll get up to $250,000 in 2029 if the money is still there. But you're going to hear me talk about this on every single grant we do. This burned us last year. We had a agreement in place with the state for grant money, and they took it away. So just keep that in the back of your mind. I would highly recommend that we still move forward with it, but please do not plan on this money.
So would you sign this, Chief? Or you need, like,
I believe a select
Chair.
person, yeah, I believe.
Yeah, so normally we do it as a chair, once we get further down the road and we actually bring a grant agreement back. At that point, you may wish to designate the fire chief for future agreements, but for the purpose of this, we'd ask for the chair to sign this.
I'll make a motion to have the chair sign this on behalf of the town.
Second.
Can I just ask one more question?
All right, let's take for motion by Josh, second by Mark, and go.
Chief, would this money be towards the newest truck that we're ordering?
Yes, yes, the 2005.
Yeah, I
believe
said
it is.
2005, but I wasn't sure which one.
Yes,
That was
that's the one
most current one we're
that
trying to replace now.
You just
Yeah.
approved us to replace that.
Gotcha, okay, that's it.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Yes, Chief.
Got him?
Okay, so tonight we have a request on behalf of the Cobble Creek Condominium Association. They have requested that the board consider adding them to our recycling curbside collection routes. I think Derek's provided in your packets a copy of the solid waste ordinance, which basically allows, if the street geometry supports it, it allows the town to pick up recycling in exchange for a maintenance agreement from the condominium association that says we'll plow if there's more than 2 inches of snow, we'll keep cars out of the way of the trucks, that kind of thing. We have a handful of these around town already that we do collect in some of the condo. Broader context, years ago when we made money on recycling, the solid waste ordinance was created, this was added, and there was also a court case, a settlement agreement with the Country Squires and Timberwood condo associations to provide recycling because it was a cost, not just cost avoidance, but actual moneymaker for the town. So solid waste ordinance allows this just in exchange for this waiver. I took a spin through the other day. The geometry of the roads is pretty good. The second section of this condo association is relatively new with the most current road standards. As long as residents adhere to the parking as they're supposed to, I don't see any issues with our trucks being able to get through. There's a handful of branches that'll need to be limbs just for the overhead clearance, but nothing huge. The condo association said that they would need 30. They have 30 units, so they need 30 recycling barrels. As Derek provided for you, current cost is $70.35 plus a little bit of shipping. The only issue is, for us anyway, right now, we don't actually have 30 new barrels to issue out until our new, once a year we place an order for replacement barrels. Once those come in, we could provide them. I think it's been a while since we had a large development added, so Derek wanted to bring this to the board, both for the approval to add, but also to discuss if the board wanted to start charging fees for a new development like this, 30 barrels. Obviously, it's about $2,200 for the purchase. One thing that we do have coming up is a new fee amendments for the town, and one thing that I will be proposing is a fee for replacement barrels. Some of them are our fault. If we find that it's our fault, obviously it'd be a no charge thing, but if a resident is not taking care of the barrel or runs it over with a car or whatever, we'd be charging a fee to replace those because they aren't cheap. So I guess the question tonight would be, A, do you want to add them in exchange for a maintenance waiver? And if so, would you like to wait until after a fee is added townwide, or would you like to provide these barrels from town funds? Any of the previous condo developments were paid for by town funds. They were just provided the barrels free of charge. The only other thing I will say for your deliberation is that the permanent agreement with Country Squires and Timberwood does not allow us to charge either of those two developments any fees related to the pickup of trash or recycling in this case, that we're not also charging other single-family residents in town. So if the solid waste ordinance and town fee structures change, then we could extend that to them, but without those changes town-wide, we can't, for those two condo associations, pick and choose if they're going to have to pay for new barrels.
Questions?
Are all these units already paid for? Like, they already have residents?
They are full.
Yeah, this is pretty old.
Yeah, I think
this is where Center Street and
Locust Hill
come in.
The phase 2 is maybe 5 years old.
Yeah.
And they haven't had any pickup?
Nope, no pickup.
No, in your solid waste ordinance, it says the town may do recycling pickup. There are some other of these where I would call duplex style condominium developments where you have a bigger lot and you have duplexes on them that don't receive recycling. But normally we get requests like this.
You concerned about precedents?
Yes, obviously, there's a few places in town, maybe one in particular might be near and dear to some folks in the room's heart, too, that certainly could come forward for the same, as presently, authorized, if the street supports it. It's hard for me to say that we shouldn't for some when we already do for others. If the board wants to change, we would have some questions about what to do with the associations that we already pick up for if we wanted to stop. And then for those two in particular, we would, I think, be barred from stopping, even rolling back collections for those two, so.
How many are we doing now?
Similar to this size, Orchard off Wallace Road, Morgan Estates down at the intersection of Danis Park near the intersection with Mass Road, Landmark or Cherokee condos, that's the one that's at the end of Larch Street.
That's the one behind Educare.
I'm sorry, yes, Back Road. Thank you, Derek. We have Gorham Pond, they bring theirs to the end of the road, and so does Landmark. They actually halt, there's only a couple houses, they actually bring theirs down to the main road. And then a couple that are on public streets, but are still condos, but we pick up the rest of the street, so we pick up those as well. A couple hundred between the public roads, and then about 130 on the private ways.
Yeah, exactly. Most of these places are getting like some sort of like HOA fees or something like that. And I think it doesn't really benefit the town financially if we just start picking that up either. Because most of those people aren't paying taxes.
I don't think that's accurate.
Well, I guess what I meant if it's rental,
Indirectly,
sorry.
Yeah.
Which we don't know if they're rental or not.
Somebody still pays taxes.
The property owners, right. It is tricky where some were constructed to different standards and the trucks can't fit. For me anyway, that's an easier black and white, hey, it's not physically possible to get a truck in there. For the bigger ones,
How are they handling trash pickup?
most have private haulers, some have dumpsters. The most recent off Bog Road, Woodland Village, they've got a number of dumpster locations that they have their private hauler pick up. Some have single collection barrels.
Does this location have trash pickup, I assume?
Not from the town.
Not from
Not from the
right,
town.
Right, not from the town. They must. I don't know of any that require their residents to come to the transfer station, but yeah, I think every condo association has some sort of collection contract.
Because then we're going to have additive increase in cost too for the recycling side as well, which is going to end up impacting us. So what was the reason for the request if they already have trash pickup? Because they're obviously not pulling it apart.
I think
Today.
for them, it's a pretty good cost avoidance measure. I presume whatever rate they pay with their hauler is probably somewhat volume-based. So if they can cut, let's just say for sake of argument, half of their volume per week out and have a zero charge.
So the HOA is trying to like alleviate costs basically. And to your point, Richard, I agree. I apologize for saying that. People are paying taxes there too. So they're going to get double whammied when basically the HOA is supposed to be taking care of that.
And I can kind of speak anecdotally. I've had at least 2 condo associations approach me, and I've met with residents in those condo associations about garbage pickup. And specifically, they've seen their rates increase significantly over the last 5 years. So it's an issue for them. And at that point, we've said the solid waste ordinance doesn't allow it, but there is that May provision that the town can take it for recycling.
Well, if we think this out logically, to your point, Richard, if people are paying taxes and then it comes back on the town, now the taxpayer is going to end up paying more for it. They're already paying the HOA. The HOA should actually be responsible for this, not us.
And even more layered, their private haulers can come dump at the transfer station for free. So there's like an extra feedback loop in there where,
So explain that one.
so if they have let's say, well, I won't throw any business names, but let's say if a private collection company comes and picks up a dumpster into their Packer trucks, the solid waste ordinance allows them, because that's residential waste generated in Goffstown, they can.
They dump it in ours anyways.
Exactly. Yeah.
We just don't run the truck.
Right.
Yeah.
So their HOA, I presume, gets a better deal because that's available to them. They don't have to haul all the way to Turnkey or.
So they're just paying for somebody to come pick it up and dump here, and we're still paying for the trash.
Ultimate disposal. Yep.
Yeah.
So on one hand, it's less recyclable material probably in the municipal solid waste, the trash stream for town-wide. But as you probably remember, the cost avoidance now is pretty thin. If it ever swung again and was a revenue or $20 a ton versus 70, then we save some real money. So there's more incentive for us to do something like this. The real incentive now is not picking, equal treatment. So we have some folks that are getting it and some folks that aren't, and our policy says you're allowed to if the board chooses. I think if I wasn't around at the time when all the court case came down and the solid waste ordinance was generated for this particular item, but my read of the phrase "may allow" is dependent upon, because it kind of then goes into if the public works director feels the trucks can get into the development, feels that they'll maintain and they agree to maintain, plowing and stuff. So to me, that's where the "may" statement comes from. I'm not sure if somebody took us to court again and said, well, you're picking up some of these condo associations that are the same structurally as us, why not us?
Do we know if Cobble Creek is dumping at our?
They must. They're right around the corner, but I don't know for sure. I'd have to see if our scale operator even knows, because some of the private haulers come in and they don't have a big, wave a flag where it is, but they'd be silly not to. It's such a quick, right around the corner.
They don't have to notify because like stickers or whatever, nothing?
Not for a particular load, so.
So how do we know if it came from our town or somebody else's?
Yeah, I mean, in the end, if we had a concern that it was, we'd track it down and follow them, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure. How do you guarantee an empty truck as it enters the town line? I'm not sure. It's a good point. But same goes for any Joe that comes in, or Jane that comes into the transfer station. They have a sticker, you can only assume that it's generated in town. We sometimes have issues that we chase back and find out that it's not the case, and we deal with those as they come up. But
I'd like to grant it, but I feel anybody that comes in now, if they come in, we're gonna have to say yes unless you can't get your trucks in, pretty much.
The way the ordinance is it does have to be, the trucks need to be able to maneuver in, and they need to sign an agreement with the town.
Right.
I feel like we're in a default budget. Is kind of one of my bigger things. We're finding it very hard to meet the needs that we already have, and we're creating more needs with this by allowing, and then how many other condo associations are we going to hear from this year who want the same thing?
Any idea how many there are that don't have this service?
So it's tricky because some of them are garden style,
Yeah.
type units. So Scott Bartlett pulled up for Derek the duplex style list, and right now the only two on there comparable are Cobble Creek and Miller's Landing.
So there's only two? Oh, so we're only opening ourselves up to two.
Of that size.
Of
That's
that,
stuff.
of that
Yeah,
size.
that's, we didn't pull the, well, I guess we also,
I've got, let's see, we've got some, see, it's kind of, it gets a little weird, but Roy Apartments in Pinardville are technically condominiums, I guess. Highwood Village on St. Anselm's Drive, we do not. Mass Road Crossing, the new Angel Point in Villa Augustina Way, we do not. Miller's Landing, as we mentioned, Placid Woods on Mountain Road, we do not. Raleigh Condo, there's a 3-unit on High Street, we do not. Residences on the Knoll, that's Abbey Lane, if you go down Moose Club Park, we do not there. And Woodland Village, we do not. Bog Road, that's the new development of Bog Road.
I don't think we're in a position to be opening up this can of worms. Not in this tight of a default budget.
And not only that, I think that, like, they've been operating this way for 5 years.
Right.
So, like, why are we gonna change now all of a sudden? And, Adam, you mentioned, like, updating the fees. Is there anything that we could do to have specific fees for condominiums?
I would think probably that would be some, I know nobody likes the legal budget, but probably a good idea for Derek and I to talk to the town attorney on equal protection question. For at least the two that I mentioned earlier with the court, the agreement, the decree, we cannot treat them separately from others as when it comes to fees. For all the rest that don't have something like that, no.
Well, I'm asking, where they're charging a fee for something already, should we be afforded something in return for that? Because they're charging the residents that are taxpayers. They're already charging them a fee to get rid of trash and do other things. Because we're now putting the burden back on the taxpayers that are there in those condominiums as well, that are already paying an HOA fee.
yeah, we would definitely need to run it by legal.
Yeah,
which-
yeah.
I'd be interested to hear if we could do something like that. Because then maybe it would kind of sway the discussion of like, hey, I'll have the town pick it up. It's either you're taking care of it or not.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion? Approve or deny the request?
I'll make a motion, we deny the request for curbside recycling for Cobble Creek condos.
Second?
Okay. Motion by Mark, second by Allison. Any more conversation?
Yeah, I'm going to recuse myself from this. I live in Country Squires, and it doesn't feel right to vote to deny it, even though I benefit from a different type of arrangement, and it doesn't feel right to approve it just because of, fairness. So,
I know it's Robert's rules, forgive me. I just don't want to get us in trouble. Might, and Derek, back me up, might recommend motion to table rather than deny. I think a denial would trigger the ability to appeal if,
Is there an appeal process in our ordinance?
let's see, I think it just says to the board, but I think if somebody wanted to stake a claim on equal protection, they would just jump right above us pretty quick.
I do think it would be a good idea to table it and get
Give more
advice
information.
from legal. But,
yeah, as far
Allison
as
and
the-
Mark, you'd have to make that,
I'll rescind the motion. I'll-
Do you want to just change it?
Yeah,
Move to table?
yeah, move to table.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion to table by Mark, second by Allison. That it? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One abstention.
Okay. Thank you.
Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, Derek.
So in tab 9A, you have your town administrator's report, employee status reports. You have 3 seasonal laborers. These are new hires in Public Works Department. You have 2 full-time firefighters receiving their military incentive, and it's retroactive per the language in the collective bargaining agreement. And then you have the separation of a call firefighter. Cemetery rights to inter, you have West Lawn Expansion Cemetery, Section W1, Lot 57A. West Lawn Expansion Cemetery, Section 5, Lot 241. And Shirley Hill Cemetery, Section 2, Lots 52C and 53C. You have 2 deposit vouchers for the Grassmere Town Hall Restoration Fund, one for $75 and one for $30. You have an off-cycle betterment assessment for Lynchville Danis Park drinking water. This is their betterment in the amount of $1,262.79. And then you have a recommendation to appoint a municipal agent for Department of Motor Vehicles for the town clerk.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion by Allison, second by Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
At your next page, you have a veteran's tax credit. The assessor recommends approval for map 5, lot 60-19B.
Motion?
Motion to approve the assessor's recommendation as presented this evening.
Seconded.
Motion by Mark, second by Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Your next page, you have a request from a resident. This resident is requesting permission from the select board to install a temporary flower box on the Main Street Bridge. She cited other towns in southern New Hampshire, specifically Route 3A and Hooksett, where they have flower boxes on it. We did consult with DPW on this, and DPW's feedback is on the project is in your memo, in which the resident has agreed to all conditions. There would be a solar H2O pump installed temporarily, and the resident will pay for all expenses related to the flower box and tend to the flowers.
Any discussion?
What happens if maintenance isn't kept on it?
Yeah. Can we-
Then I would, I think what you would do is, if you were willing to approve this as part of your motion, if the maintenance is not kept up, to direct the Department of Public Works to have the resident remove it, and if they don't remove it immediately, then the town will remove it.
I like that.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Richard, second by Allison. Any further discussion?
I will speak to this, and because she emailed me directly, and she was very excited and loved the way Hooksett looked, and was all in on taking care of it. So I think this will be a nice addition to the downtown area.
Okay, that's encouraging. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
At your next page, you have a request for a building permit on a private road. This is allowed under RSA 674:41, subsection 1D. This is at 36 Allard Park Road, map 6, lot 4. The property owner went to the Goffstown zoning board in January of this year, and they were granted a special exception to build on a non-conforming lot. They have been issued the necessary 4-bedroom septic system design approval from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services. We did send this building permit request to the planning board in accordance with the RSA for their comment. They provided no comment. If the select board do approve this, we do have a standard municipal waiver of liability for a building permit on a private road.
So, I was at the planning board meeting for this one. There are other houses that are actually down there as well, off this road.
So there are 2 off of Allard Park Road. There are some also from Riverview Park Road that can be accessed from this direction as well.
Correct.
And then you have, you also have Surratt Road that kind of cuts down to the river as well.
I think that when it was presented originally that the select board had sent it there, which kind of got into a whole another conversation. The planning department sent it there first, which is why basically the planning board said these keep coming to us without any real understanding or discussion, which is why I came back as a no comment. So I would think that if these go forward, Derek, next time, I think clarity when they get brought is kind of required, because it was presented as coming from the select board. Select board hadn't even seen this yet.
Okay. Would this board be interested in adopting a policy on building permits on Class 6 and private roads. There was a change in the law. Now you can build on a Class 6 road without select board approval. That will go into effect on July 1st. It is still subject to municipal waiver of liability. Private roads goes to the governing body after comment from the planning board or following a town-adopted policy on the subject matter. So we can bring forward, looking at other towns, a draft policy for the board to consider at a future meeting.
It might be beneficial for us in general because the state keeps taking away local ability to like review and approve or disapprove these. It may also get rid of some of the back and forth that occurs at the planning board too, Derek.
Yeah, there is definitely uncertainty because the property owner wants to know whether it be approved at select board, but you've also got the zoning board that has to grant approval. So we can bring forward a draft ordinance to kind of step through that process.
I'll make a motion to have town administrator come back to us with a proposed policy for the town.
Second?
Motion by Josh, second by Allison. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Do we have to do this one
Yeah.
still now, though?
Yes,
Yeah,
you do
we
have this request
Okay.
before you, and they have followed the necessary steps to bring this request before you.
Motion?
Just one question, because I didn't get clarity on this at the meeting, Derek. Responsibility from a fire or emergency standpoint, since this is on a private road, what happens here?
As I understand it, the fire or police will make an effort to get there, but if it is not passable or there's some danger to vehicles, that's why we have the municipal waiver of liability.
And that will be signed for this one?
We require that it is signed and recorded at the registry of deeds, so any future property owners are able to find it through title search. That is a requirement of the law. And we do not issue a building permit application until that is completed.
And is Adam required to go pick up trash or recycling there?
No, and
Can I add that? No, I'm just kidding.
it actually is in the waiver, as well as pickup for school-aged children. They have to get them to the closest Class 5 road.
And I'll make a motion to approve the request for the building permit on a private road, map 6, lot 4, as presented, subject to municipal waiver of liability being recorded at the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds prior to the issuance of the building permit at the property's owner expense, understanding that police, fire will make best effort.
Second?
Motion by Josh, second by Allison. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. Tab 10 in the old business. No? Okay, anybody have any new business? Okay. Action matrix, anything,
Trying to find the action matrix and all this stuff.
10C?
10C.
10C.
It's behind the map, so.
Is the backhoe back up? I thought I saw an actual invoice for that.
It is back in service. Yep.
Awesome. We had to rent some backhoes as well.
How did you have to rent?
We rented a mini excavator.
Okay.
Okay. All set?
Yeah, I think so. The grader is out of service. Yeah, I'm all set.
Okay, I'll open the meeting up for public comment one more time. Seeing and hearing no one, I'll close public comment section and,
Jim, one other thing, I guess, because you and I have been on some emails around vehicle leasing. And we just want to talk about the fact that we'll be getting the leasing information at the end of the month, is that correct?
You'll get that at your next meeting on the 22nd, yes.
Okay. Will the CRF also be coming, Derek?
Yeah, I've also requested that information from department heads. I know a couple, I know Adam had put those in his CIP presentation, so he has those ready.
Okay.
I've been working on the one that I would be bringing to you with a recommendation as well.
Okay, perfect.
Motion?
Make a motion to go into non-public session, RSA 91A:3, 2, for A, employee compensation, I, consideration of matters relating to the preparation for the carrying out of emergency functions directly intended to thwart the deliberate act.
Second that.
Okay. Motion by Mark, second by Josh. This is roll call, I think. Yep.
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. That's the end of our public portion of our meeting. Thank you.